All righty, NFL Week 10 football betting contest countdown. He is LVC. I'm Adam Chernoff, and we're doing this for Covers, as always, here on the main Covers Twitter account every Thursday at 10 a.m. Pacific time, 1 p.m. Eastern time. We tried to do what wasn't impossible till last week. We're trying to pick the top 5 consensus picks that Circa Sports sends out every Saturday for the Circa Million contest. We finally had a big week. It took 9 weeks, but we finally did it.
We did
good about it, I can tell.
No, we did it. We're getting into our stride. That's we'll hit the back half running.
Getting into our stride 9 weeks into the season, a little bit later than probably expected with people that do as much of this as we do. But again, this is very, very different. But last week very much went the way we anticipated it to, with how players in the contest were going to make their selections. And you're going to hear us talk about the will 1,000 people pick this side. And here's the perfect example of why. All 5 picks last week that made the top 5 had at least 1,000 selections. We were spot on with the Pats. We were spot on with the Chargers, your top pick of the week. So you edged me there. You take a 6-3 lead in the overall most picked head-to-head that we're having on. The Bengals, we were spot on with that one, and we nailed the 49ers too. The one outlier for us, the Green Bay Packers plus 7.5, but it was a game that we talked about. We had it right on the fringe with a lot of the other selections, and just ultimately didn't put it in as we went another direction. But 4-5, a good week, and we're moving on to week 10. Are you feeling the optimism? Because I'm feeling a little bit of a run here coming.
I'm feeling the optimism because, if we're going to admit where we did not do well, we have to look at the reasons why. And it's tougher to do it on Thursdays. And for me, I just found I had a different perspective on this on a Thursday than I do on a Saturday. And we're kind of retraining our brains a little bit. We're both coming in from different perspectives. You're coming in from a more public perception. I'm coming in from a more strategy perspective, and we're kind of meeting in the middle here. And I think it benefited us last week, and it will going forward. It's making me think, about it longer. But I worry because I see a lot of other shows doing the same thing now, where they're trying to do the same thing. And I want to caution people that this is not the end all to end all to try to fade being on these plays. It's just important to be aware of what these popular plays are going to be necessarily. I tweeted out that I'm probably going to gripe about something, and I do want to gripe about something.
Gripe away.
And that is, there's a lot of contest content coming out there. And I've heard of several different shows where people use the term never. And you never do that. That's the only time you can use the word never, okay? And they're wrong. They're absolutely wrong. That's all I'm going to say. You don't listen to anybody that says never do this. So that's my gripe.
So put it in context for people listening to the show. When those other people are saying never, they're referring to never betting on certain teams. They're referring to never doing certain strategies. What's the little? Give us an extra layer.
Using different strategies. It's, I don't want to go into the specifics of it, but it's just be careful with what you hear. And I may, what I say may not be, I'm not saying that I know everything. I don't think anybody knows everything. I think that strategies have to be considered or almost never considered, but there's never. There's never in contest strategy. Trust me. So there are way too many variables to go out on a limb and say you never do something, because I've heard shows that say you never do this, and I'm bursting out laughing. Oh, really? I can mathematically prove a reason why you would do this, and you just said never do it. And oh, really? I did this all last year with great success. The exact thing that you told me not to do. So that's all I'm going to say. It's just be careful with what you hear out there. I mean, everything that I say is not good for what you may be positioned to do in your contest at a given time. There is a time and a place to find out what these 5 games are going to be and to stay away from them or to stay on them. Or so, and there may be a time to just completely ignore them. I mean, all this is just data to consider.
So you're viewed as and proven to be one of the most successful football contest players in the state of Nevada, in the United States. You're known for it, which is why we have you here on the show. My question as a fairly new contest player is something I think about a lot of times week by week. There's 4,000 people in the contest. Of those 4,000, how many people do you think have set a strategy at the start of the year and are just sticking to it the entire year in terms of fading certain teams or not going above a certain number within the point spread? Are people that locked into certain strategies for the entire year that it actually represents a large portion of this pool doing the same thing week by week?
No, I don't think so. I think actually we've reached the point of where people start to worry about this stuff a little bit too much, if that makes any sense. Too many, mouthpieces like you and I and and dozens of other people telling you what you're supposed to do in your contest. And, that's your choice. You do what you want to do in your contest. And every single strategy that you hear that's supposed to be good may only be good to use once or twice a year. Maybe not even a single time in a year. Other strategies, yeah, you do use every week, but there are no absolutes in contests because there's too many variables with information gathering and just the unique situations that you may be in that week.
And also your position relative to the rest of the contest is significant and very important to think about on a week by week basis to dictate what you're doing, correct?
Yeah, of course. And it flabbergasts me that, I mean, the one thing that I can tell you that I have seen, and it shocks me because I'm not going to throw anybody in particular under the bus, but there are people in my circle that damn well know one thing if you're trailing not to do, and they did it anyway the last 2 weeks, and they played San Francisco and they played Minnesota. What the hell is the point of being on those two sides when you know the line has moved 4 points and everybody else is going to be on that side? That's a gift for you. That's a gift for you. It's a gift. And what do? You like sheep. You get on it. What's the point? You either go on the other side or pick another game.
And the reasoning behind that is if you're trailing and you're on the side that everybody else is picking, you're not going to gain any ground and you're giving up one of your 5 picks.
Yeah, but I don't necessarily say you're supposed to take the bad line and take the Arizona -1.5 or the Dallas -1.5, because then you're really double mucking yourself.
Just play something else.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't want to be guaranteed if a line that's 5 points off that I'm gonna if that wins that I'm gonna be 2 games back now because of that. That's ridiculous. So why wouldn't I just pick another game and just let them play with it? I mean, they do have. I mean, when people sit there and preach to you, oh, how important every little half point is and blah, 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 and you're supposed to take the line value. Well, then why would you ever take the other side? It makes no sense. How can you advise somebody?
Goes against everything.
How can you advise somebody to take the other side of that game if it's all that important? Just stay off the game.
I like feisty LVC coming in here on Thursday morning at 10:12 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, letting it fly a little bit.
Well, you know what? You didn't load your podcast up this morning, and I had nothing to do except get pissed off looking for it. So
the provider at times I'm not happy with the provider. We'll just leave it at that. There's some issues with the uploads that are sporadic, and today happened to be one of those mornings. And by the time I realize it, it's too late. So we'll segue in here for what the folks have come to watch for. Although through that rant, the viewership was holding up very nice. So we appreciate everybody tuning in, and hopefully you got some value there, because you're very right in saying that if you have to think about where you are in the contest week by week, which should help shape the way that you are picking your games. Because like you said, if you're trailing, you want to pick up ground. And the way to do that is not being on these top 5. So while we try to pick these top 5, it's hopefully helping you shape, or at least think about the week coming up. And we'll do our best effort here as we're going through it. But before we came on the air, I said I thought this was really easy. I think that caught you off guard because we've gone into every week so far saying, I'm not sure how this is going to turn out. But for me, there are a handful of teams that stick out above the rest that I think are going to get a ton of attention. And I'm going to throw two at you. And I will be very impressed if you can talk me out of either of these teams being on the top 5. And I think you know who they are. The first one is the Tennessee Titans off 4 consecutive victories, 4 consecutive covers against the best teams in the league. And then the second would be the Los Angeles Rams -4 against the 49ers, who everybody was absolutely embarrassed by and were also the most picked a week ago against the Arizona Cardinals in a game that I think everybody in the contest assumed that they would just have in their pocket after that number closed 5.5 or 6. And I think with the Rams off that Sunday night performance, people are going to be looking for the bounce back. Tennessee and the Rams, surely these are both in the top 5 for the consensus picks this week.
That would be correct. Affirmative, sir.
All right. So that was exceptionally easy. Do we need to talk about the Titans and why they're going to be there, or is that just implied at this point?
Oh, I think everybody can figure that out. With the role that they've been on and just the appearances of weakness from the Saints and discombobulation, struggling against what's perceived as a weak Atlanta team. How can you not like the Tennessee? And you don't even, what is the line? I didn't even see the Circa line.
3 flat.
Yeah. I mean, that's an easy one.
Okay, so we've got 2 of the 5 in as quick of a fashion as I think we ever have done. The next one that I would point out as standing out to me would be the LA Chargers at home against the Minnesota Vikings. And the reason I bring that up is because, again, we saw last week a ton of people on the Chargers against the Eagles. They get rewarded for it. Perception on the Chargers and support for them has been very high the entire season. And now they're getting a Vikings team that has been in the news the entire week with the COVID situation, but also a team that is starting to sort of crumble a little bit with some of the things going on internally within the locker room. There's some numbers that support the Vikings a little bit better than perhaps they're being perceived as, but I don't know if the contest is going that deep as a whole to where 1,000 people are going to pick up on those, where on the other side, the Chargers keep rewarding these players, especially last week with so many on them. Is there any reason that we're not going to see at least 1,000 people going back to the Chargers this week at home versus the Vikings?
No, that would be a good wager. We should start a betting line on this, over under 1,000.
Wow, that's what it takes. So is this, like, I think the Titans are going to be 1,400 in that neighborhood. That's going to be on the high side. I think the Rams are going to be slightly lower, but I would say the Chargers are firmly in the 1,100 to 1,200 range.
Well, yeah, and then if they announce some problem with Cook or do they have a COVID issue also there? Yeah,
they were testing 28 players as close contacts. Yeah. Now, does that mean they're out? No, but look at producer Brady and Mick on the ball here, pulling this article up. Mike Zimmer says Vikings player hospitalized due to COVID situations, and that led to a ton of close contact tracing, testing. It's really disrupted their week of practice. So we still don't know the extent of it. That'll probably be announced a little bit later today. But as is, I think the Chargers at 3 are going to be very popular. No disagreements there?
No disagreements. We only have to find 2 more.
Well, I think from a team perspective, it's pretty easy to go a couple different directions. However, something that I'm going to throw a curveball in there with one of them. But I think the Broncos -3 at home is certainly a consideration against the Eagles, who, remember, against the Lions, we went back and forth on that a couple weeks ago. The Lions were one of the most picked against the Eagles. Last week, the Chargers were one of the most picked against the Eagles. And then everybody saw what the Broncos did to the Cowboys a week ago, and everyone was rewarded for going against the Eagles. Now you're getting a small number here at 3. I think that one's very interesting. And then the other one that I would just sort of float over and see what you think from a consideration standpoint would be the Kansas City Chiefs -2.5 Sunday Night Football at less than a field goal versus the Raiders.
Yeah, we got 4 there, including Kansas City. I'm pretty sure Kansas City looks pretty appealing. I don't think Denver's necessarily as appealing because the line's going down on that. So let's see if there's any other options there.
Okay, so Kansas City in as the 4th. You're agreeing with that?
I agree with that.
And to me, I think that this is that sort of double situation where it's a team that's likely to be popular just because of the matchup. But then I also think that there's a lot of people looking at this, like that group of contest players that does that certain level of handicapping, looking at past lines, looking at key numbers, going a little bit more in depth into the handicap, more so than just kind of having their own thing. And maybe they're consuming a good deal of media, and everything's sort of slanted that direction this week in favor of Kansas City. And I think that might kind of go into that next level group. So while this isn't like when you're looking at consensus sites and other contests, this is not going to be like a 70-30 type of play that we see where it's just like overwhelmingly bookmakers are coming out saying it's incredibly one-sided. But I think this is kind of like that first tier of kind of handicapping that goes into some of these players that take KC here.
Well, and I think people are going to just get that subliminal confirmation bias all week long on the different shows because nobody's advocating the Raiders, but there's a fair amount of people advocating Kansas City. So, whether people realize it or not, they put in picks or make decisions on wagers, rationalizing it. Well, if they go down, I go down with that mentality.
Hey, it's
or if I go down, they go down.
I think that's going to also be the case with a couple of other games this week. There are a ton of folks that are on the Saints against the Titans. Not saying from the contest, but another very popular media pick this week is the Saints, and people are just, I think, kind of taking it, going against the Titans in that current run. But I don't know if that's going to outweigh the other 1,000. So I'm with you there on KC. We're looking for one more in record time here. 18 minutes into the show, there was a 10-minute gripe. We've already got 4. I was saying it's an easy week. Where are we going for the 5th?
Oh.
I'm putting you on the spot because you turned down my Broncos suggestion.
Well, you took literally all the ones I had written down already. So,
Buccaneers, too big of a number. We've seen people gravitate towards the bigger numbers lately. 9.5, less than the key of 10. Not too sure what that number is going to do between now and kickoff, but Buccaneers off of a bye. Not too sure there's too much hope anymore in Washington. And now all of a sudden, a bit of an interesting look-ahead spot brewing with the news of Cam Newton being added to Carolina. Ron Rivera, the old coach, where does Washington happen to go next week? Right into Carolina for likely Newton's first start. So there's going to be a lot of news, a lot of press, and a lot to think about for the quote-unquote riverboat gambler, which is the worst nickname in football. No love for the Buccaneers at 9.5, you think?
Yeah, I think there is some, but I think we've noticed that any of those spreads that are going over 7 are not getting picked as often. So I think we have to focus in on the under 7s. And well, unless, boy, I know that's going to turn your stomach. The Lions might actually get some play this week because Pittsburgh just can't get distance from teams. Number one, and the Lions are getting healthy again. So, and they're off the bye, off that horrible game. So if they're ever going to show up, they should be able to show up like Jacksonville did off their bye, right, in Seattle.
Wow, especially because, boy, they play so hard for that head coach. And, just what a great guy. Just always motivating his players to just do great things. Isn't it just such a great story? If they weren't quite playing as hard, they might be a winless team. Oh, wait, they are a winless team. What are we doing?
I've got the under 5 wins, so
great ticket. Great ticket to have in your account. Yeah. So Lions +8. What about the Falcons as another big dog +9 at the Cowboys? I feel like if it was any other, it's so tough to go against the Cowboys because they're popular every single week. But like, surely that number is inflated relative to where it should be.
I don't think it's inflated, but a lot of people don't. I don't think enough people are picking up on where Atlanta is actually positioned. I mean, when they won their second win, when they had their second win, I said, and they're going on the bye. I said, you watch it. They've got playoff potential here, and sure enough, they're in the playoffs as of today.
4-4, so, squeaking in.
Yep, they're doing well. So, but yeah, Atlanta might get some play there, but I don't think it's off. What about the Seattle Green Bay? When are we going to?
That's where I was going to go. So there's some interesting back and forth there with Russell Wilson coming back for the Seahawks, Rodgers not being able to practice for the duration of the week. He is eligible to return if the protocol is cleared Saturday afternoon. This is now down to Green Bay -3. That's where we're getting in the contest. Does Seattle get play?
Well, the chic stat of the recent time is what are the quarterback records coming off of COVID misses? They don't win, right?
Do you know the number? I don't know that number.
I think it's
overwhelming.
0-4, 0-5, something along that lines.
I remember it last year with Newton, certainly, and then the Broncos had that issue that broke out as well. But that's an interesting consideration for sure, which I was honestly surprised when I saw this Packers -5. A lot of that was sort of assuming that Russ was in, at least I thought. And then we saw the news come out and there was this snap reaction that brought this number down. Were people genuinely uncertain in the market that Russ may not play this week? Was that not always assumed?
I depending on where you're receiving your news, there was a fair amount of campaigning to get Rodgers suspended.
Right.
So there was doubt on whether even if he comes back or not and can test, negative, is the league going to suspend him? What's going to happen here? So there was like a double whammy sort of thing going on. And then you've got this stat where these quarterbacks coming back from COVID aren't winning because COVID takes some recovery time. So what kind of Rodgers are we going to get even if he shows up with no practice?
We won't get into the politics of anything here, but Rodgers was fined $6,000 less for violating COVID protocols than CeeDee Lamb was fined for playing with his shirt untucked. We will leave it at that. We'll consider Seattle potentially here at +3. I'd say the only other potential spots that we're missing would be Cleveland, New England, which to me is a very 50-50 game.
Yeah, that's 50-50.
And then two other big favorites, the Bills and the Cardinals. Arizona, you still don't know what the quarterback situation. The Bills laying that big of a number, even bigger last week, losing outright, probably not drawing a ton of attention against Mike White and the Jets. Are we crossing those ones off?
I think so. I think Green Bay, Seattle could sneak in there one way or another, actually. I don't lean the Seattle way. I lean the Green Bay way. Once, if they say Saturday morning he's in, Rodgers is in, I think that 3 looks short.
So is that going to be more popular and more widely viewed as a potential bet than the two big underdogs, which might draw attention, Atlanta or Detroit?
I think we can't guess. So I
would say
throw in Atlanta or Detroit.
Between those two, I would lean Atlanta, I think. I would go against the Cowboys hype.
Yeah, why don't we do that? Because, yeah, I could see that.
Are more people going to be betting against the Cowboys or betting against the Steelers? Because we're essentially dealing with a similar number. But I feel like we both think Atlanta's a much better team than the Lions are.
I think you're going to have people betting against both of those teams, but you're going to have fewer people betting against Dallas than betting against Pittsburgh, and you're going to have more people betting on Atlanta instead of on Detroit, right?
That's what I'm thinking too. That's where that sort of other side gets made up. So we have the top five set, 25 minutes, record time. Tennessee, LA Rams, Sunday Night Football. That's Monday Night Football. LA Rams, Monday Night Football. The Chargers -3. KC, Sunday Night Football, -2.5. And then Atlanta as the lone dog in the 5 +9 on the road at the Cowboys. I feel very good about those first four. I think Atlanta, I think they can get there. I think that's going to be the tricky one, but I would be very surprised if we don't get 3 or 4 of the 5 here with those first four.
Yeah, I do a round robin parlay with those 4 that they get over 1,000 votes.
I think so too. I think I'm with you. Now, as we do every week, you have the 6-3 lead. You got to go first last week. So we're trying to pick the most selected team. So which team is going to get the most picks in the Circa Million consensus on Saturday afternoon. I get to go first. I think it's pretty clear. I'm going to go with the Tennessee Titans at home versus the Saints. Might put you in a bit of a tough spot, but was that the team you wanted to go with, or you have another one of these 4 that is going to jump out for you?
I think Chargers for me.
I think it'll be.
And I probably would have taken. I might have taken. I'm happy with the Charger. I think both of those are going to be pretty tight.
Okay, 6-3. I got to close the gap. I have Tennessee as the top picked. You have the Chargers. One last order of business. We're moving over to Survivor. Things are getting a little bit muddy overall for Survivor players. A big chunk knocked out with the Bills. Another big chunk narrowly avoids it with the Steelers. Lost 122 to the Saints. So all of a sudden, after 6 or 7 weeks where everybody got through pretty scot-free, we're starting to see things fall pretty quickly. Looking at the board this week, there's a couple big favorites. The Bills -12, Arizona -10, but both of those have later implications in the season on those 2 key days. So when you're looking for where the highest selection of Survivor picks may come from, who do you think is going to be the top pick this week?
It just might be Pittsburgh's open for that, right? Pittsburgh doesn't play either of those 2 weeks, right?
I'm going to pull it up right as we're on it right now. Pittsburgh does not play on Thanksgiving. And I also believe that they're going to avoid the Christmas Day issues. They do indeed. The Cardinals play on Christmas. Yeah. So I think that's still something that people are going to be saving for a little while yet. And then with Thanksgiving coming up, that could skew things around. So the Steelers are a team this week that dodges that. Do you think people are going to go to them after that performance on Monday Night Football?
More people than not. It's not. This is the time of season where you're going to be hard pressed to be start. Feel comfortable with whatever you put in. So
it's tough to be picky this time of year. What about the Cowboys at home? Just less availability?
I wouldn't. Dallas plays Thanksgiving Day. You can't use Dallas.
So you wouldn't try swerve if you were trying to get cute with it. You'd leave that and just sit on it.
No way.
All right. I'm with you there. Most selected for Survivor going to be, yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. It's going to be the Steelers. The Colts, they played that Thursday night game against the Jets, and they got a lot of selections within that. They're laying 10.5 at home to the Jags, but I don't know if that's going to get across there because availability is reduced. There hasn't really been another time where a lot of people could flock towards the Steelers this season. The other highest price that they've laid was Monday Night Football, and that was not knocking them out of a selection for a lot of people still in the contest. So I think that makes a lot of sense then. That was 30 minutes on the nose. That was incredibly efficient. It feels like things are getting a little bit more clear from how people are taking on these teams week to week. Does it not? Like we're getting streaks. We're getting teams winning a number of games in a row. There's momentum for bettors and how they're looking at it. I feel like that's making this a lot easier.
Yeah, it is. And that should make it easier for people to either preserve where they are or gain some ground too. you have to make your move. If you're wallowing, you have to make your move. That's the other thing about the contest strategies is some strategies apply only if you're part of the masses. If you're doing really well and you're honestly playing to win, then you have to be more aggressive or less aggressive and change your strategies accordingly.
And never say never.
Never say never.
That's the theme of the show.
Yes.
He's LVC. I'm Adam Chernoff for Covers.com. This was the football betting contest countdown for NFL Week 10. We will see you guys back here next Thursday, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. Good luck with your bets.